Hello everyone. Today I'm going to tell you some stories about cheating. The first story. The scent of spiced dates and simmering lamb hung heavy in the air, a familiar comfort to Omar, the rug merchant. The Kasbah of Algiers was his lifeblood, a chaotic tapestry of haggling, laughter, and the constant murmur of 100 different languages. He knew every stall, every face, every hidden alleyway. And for the last few months, he'd come to know another face remarkably well, that of Fatima, the wife of the stern accountant, Khalil. Fatima came to his stall initially looking for a rug. A small, woven prayer rug in blues and golds, she'd said, for her aging mother. Omar, known for his keen eye and persuasive charm, had shown her a dozen, each more intricate than the last. But it wasn't the rugs that held her captive. It was the stories he wove about their origins, about the nomadic tribes who crafted them, the ancient symbols etched into their fibers. He painted pictures with his words, transporting her from the stifling confines of her respectable, yet monotonous life. Khalil, a man of numbers and ledgers, saw only the price tag. Omar saw the yearning in Fatima's eyes, the stifled laughter that bubbled just beneath the surface, the quiet desperation for something more. Their conversations became longer, bolder. Fatima would linger after the haggle, her fingers brushing his as she paid for the rug. A stolen glance, a whispered compliment on the color of his turban, the sweet taste of forbidden fruit that it began subtly. A shared sweet pastry dipped in honey, a stroll through the less crowded spice market, the excuse of needing advice on which herbs to buy for Khalil's recurring cough. The Kasbah, with its labyrinthine alleys and bustling crowds, became their confessional, their playground, their secret haven. Their affair blossomed amidst the vibrant chaos of the bazaar. Omar, invigorated by her youthful energy, found himself laughing more, his stall overflowing with vibrant colors and exotic wares. Fatima, starved for affection and adventure, discovered a boldness she never knew she possessed. Khalil, oblivious, remained buried in his books, content in the illusion of domestic tranquility. One sweltering afternoon, Fatima found Omar in the back of his stall, sipping mint tea with a fellow merchant. She'd come bearing dates stuffed with almonds, a delicacy she knew he loved. She caught his eye and he gestured her over with a secretive smile. As she approached, a glint of gold caught her attention. Omar was displaying a magnificent silk scarf, embroidered with peacocks and shimmering in the sunlight. "For my wife," Omar said to his companion, his voice low and intimate, as he carefully wrapped the scarf. "She deserves something beautiful." Fatima froze. The words pierced her like a shard of glass. He was married. Of course, he was married. She swallowed the lump in her throat, the dates tasting like ash. The Kasbah, once a vibrant haven, suddenly felt claustrophobic, the smells acrid, the laughter mocking. She turned and fled, pushing her way through the throng of shoppers, tears blurring her vision. She ran until she reached the relative quiet of her own street, the grand, imposing houses of Algiers' elite. That evening, Khalil came home tired and disgruntled. Fatima served him his supper in silence. He ate dutifully, complaining about the rising cost of sugar. Inside, she was a tempest. She wanted to scream, to break the carefully crafted facade of their marriage, to confess everything. But she couldn't. The price of her rebellion was too high. Days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Fatima lived a life of quiet desperation, haunted by the image of that silk scarf and the casual betrayal in Omar's words. The vibrant colors of the Kasbah now seemed garish, the exotic smells cloying. One day, she found herself drawn back to the bazaar. She knew it was foolish, dangerous, but she couldn't stay away. She saw Omar at his stall, his smile as charming as ever, his eyes scanning the crowd. He didn't see her. She approached a young girl with a beautiful red ribbon in her hair. "Would you give this to the rug merchant?" she whispered, handing the girl a small, carefully wrapped package. "Tell him it is a gift from a grateful admirer." The girl skipped off, and Fatima watched as Omar unwrapped the package. Inside was a single, perfect date, stuffed with almonds. A reminder of their stolen moments, a bittersweet echo of a love that could never be. She turned and walked away, leaving the Casbah behind. She knew she could never truly forget Omar, the man who had awakened her dormant spirit, but she also knew that she could never truly be his. The price of freedom, she realized, was not always worth the cost. She had a life, a reputation, a responsibility. And in the end, she chose to remain within the gilded cage of her marriage, forever marked by the scent of spiced dates and the ghost of a silk scarf. The bazaar, once her lover, was now her prison, a constant reminder of the choice she had made and the life she would never live. She was trapped, not by Khalil, but by her own choices, by the delicate balance between desire and duty, a balance she could never quite master. The second story. The hum of the washing machine was a dull counterpoint to the symphony of regret playing in Eleanor's head. Whites swirled in the soapy water, a visual representation of how she felt, churning, off-kilter, and desperately needing a good rinse. Mark, her husband, was supposed to be back tomorrow. From Houston. From NASA. From the stars, and she, Eleanor, had traded constellations for a fleeting, earthbound fumble with the milkman. Okay, not the milkman. She hadn't even seen a milkman in years. It was Greg, the astrophysicist who'd been temporarily assigned to Mark's team, a man who knew more about black holes than he did about social boundaries. Or maybe she just hadn't set them firmly enough. It had started innocently enough. Sympathy. Mark was constantly gone, training, prepping, enduring simulations that seemed designed to break a man. Eleanor felt ignored, adrift in their meticulously curated suburban life. Greg, with his intense eyes and passionate lectures about the mysteries of the cosmos, had been a life raft in a sea of loneliness. One glass of wine turned into 2, then 3. And then, in a moment of weakness she now wanted to claw back with her bare hands. She'd let him kiss her. One kiss led to another, and another. She'd told herself it was nothing, a harmless experiment in temporary connection. But it wasn't. Now, the looming return of her husband, a man who walked among the stars, felt like Judgment Day. She pulled the laundry from the washer, the scent of lavender a pathetic attempt at masking the stench of guilt clinging to her. Mark was a good man. Kind, intelligent, dedicated. He was everything she admired, and seemingly everything she couldn't appreciate until she'd nearly destroyed it. The back door creaked open. Eleanor froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was too early. It was Greg. He stood there, framed by the twilight, his normally rumpled brown hair even more disheveled. He looked distraught. Eleanor, I need to talk to you. He spoke in a low, urgent tone. Eleanor wanted to scream. Greg, this is the worst possible time. No, you don't understand. I can't keep this a secret any longer. He stepped closer, his hand reaching for hers. Eleanor recoiled. Greg, stop. Just go. Mark is coming home tomorrow. His face crumpled. That's what I need to tell you about. About Mark. A knot of dread tightened in Eleanor's stomach. What about him? Greg hesitated, then took a deep breath. The mission, it's been moved up. They're launching tonight. He's already at the Cape. Eleanor's world tilted. Tonight? But, he didn't say anything. He always calls. He couldn't. It was top secret. He left you a letter. He asked me to give it to you. Greg held out a crumpled envelope with shaky hands. Eleanor snatched the letter, her fingers trembling as she ripped it open. The familiar neat handwriting assaulted her with a pang of deep, visceral pain. My dearest Eleanor, no, this is sudden. I wish I could be there to explain, to hold you one last time before I embark on this incredible journey. But the universe doesn't always grant us our wishes. I know I'm not always the easiest person to be married to. My head is often in the clouds, and my heart, well, my heart is often preoccupied with the infinite possibilities of space. But know this, Eleanor, my heart also beats for you. You are my anchor, my grounding force, the quiet constant in a chaotic life. I know I haven't always shown it, but I love you more than words can say that I have to go now. I promise to look down on our little blue planet and think of you, with every revolution around the sun, with all my love, always. Mark. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face, blurring the ink. She sank to the floor, the letter clutched in her hand. The weight of her infidelity, already heavy, was now crushing. Mark, her husband, was hurtling towards the stars, while she was grounded, mired in the mud of her own mistakes. Greg knelt beside her, his voice barely a whisper. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Eleanor barely registered his apology. The only sound she could hear was the relentless pounding of her own regret, echoing the thunderous roar of a rocket igniting, carrying the man she loved further and further away. He was gone, orbiting the Earth, while she was still here, stuck on the ground, with a secret that could shatter everything, wondering if she'd ever be worthy of the stars he reached for. The third story. The air in the botanical garden was thick with the perfume of 1,000 blooms, a heady, intoxicating scent that clung to the humid air. Elias, normally immune to such romantic flourishes, felt a twitch of something unfamiliar in his chest. He glanced at Clara, her face flushed in the afternoon sun, her camera clicking softly as she captured the vibrant hues of a rare orchid. Years of marriage had settled them into a comfortable rhythm, a well-worn path of shared meals, quiet evenings, and the gentle hum of domesticity. But here, amidst the exotic foliage and whispering fountains, he felt a disquieting sense of stagnation. That's when he saw her. She was near the koi pond, her long, raven hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. She was sketching in a worn leather-bound book, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her name, he later learned, was Willow. She spoke with a soft, melodic voice, her words as carefully cultivated as the blooms surrounding them. They talked about art, about the fleeting nature of beauty, about the yearning that pulsed beneath the surface of even the most ordinary lives. Elias found himself drawn to her like a moth to a flame. Willow represented everything his life with Clara was not: spontaneity, passion, a sense of untamed wilderness. He met her secretly, in hidden nooks of the garden, their conversations growing deeper, their touches lingering a fraction of a second longer each time. He told himself it was just a connection, a meeting of minds, a brief escape from the mundane. He told himself it meant nothing, but the lies twisted in his gut like thorny vines. Clara, oblivious at first, began to notice the subtle shifts. The way he avoided her gaze, the way his smiles felt distant, the way his scent subtly shifted, carrying the earthy aroma of the botanical garden instead of his usual cologne. She saw the ghost of a secret in his eyes, a shadow that clung to him despite his attempts to brush it away. One afternoon, Clara decided to visit the botanical garden herself. She wandered through the familiar paths, the scent of the flowers now a cloying reminder of Elias's absence. And then, she saw them, Elias and Willow, sitting on a moss-covered bench, their heads bent together, their hands almost touching. The air around them shimmered with an intimacy that Clara knew too well, an intimacy that was now stolen. The world tilted. The vibrant colors of the flowers seemed to mock her. The gentle murmur of the fountain became a deafening roar. She stood frozen, a statue of grief and betrayal, until they finally looked up and saw her. Willow, her face pale and drawn, gathered her sketchbook and fled, disappearing into the labyrinthine paths of the garden. Elias remained, his face a mask of shame and regret. Clara, he stammered, but the word tasted like ash in his mouth. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She simply looked at him, her eyes filled with a sorrow so profound it shattered his carefully constructed facade. I think you should leave, she said, her voice barely a whisper. He left. The days that followed were a blur of pain and recrimination. He moved out, the silence of his empty apartment echoing the hollowness in his heart. He called Willow, but she wouldn't answer. He was left with the crushing weight of his actions, the realization that he had sacrificed something precious for a fleeting illusion. Clara, meanwhile, retreated into herself. She poured her pain into her photography, capturing the decaying beauty of the world with a newfound intensity. She found solace in the resilience of nature, the way life found a way to bloom even in the face of adversity. One day, she returned to the botanical garden. She walked slowly, her camera in hand, her heart heavy but resolute. She stopped by the koi pond, the place where it had all begun. She closed her eyes, breathing in the familiar scent, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of something other than pain. It was a fragile seed of hope, a whisper of possibility. She opened her eyes and raised her camera, focusing on a single, vibrant bloom, its petals reaching towards the sun. The future was uncertain, the path ahead unclear. But she knew, with a quiet certainty, that she would find her way, one bloom at a time. The garden, once a symbol of betrayal, would become a reminder of her own strength, her own resilience, her own ability to bloom again, even after the harshest winter. And Elias? He was just a faded memory, a withered flower pressed between the pages of a closed book. The fourth story. The hermit stared back at Amelia from the worn velvet cloth, its lantern casting a lonely glow. Amelia's own face reflected in the dusty windowpane of the small, cluttered room, her features drawn tight with a worry she'd been trying to ignore for months. "And what does this card tell you about my relationship?" she asked, her voice tight. The tarologist, Serafina, a woman draped in more scarves than Amelia owned, steepled her fingers. "The hermit suggests a period of introspection, a turning inward. Your partner may be feeling a need for solitude, a desire to retreat and seek answers within himself." Amelia scoffed, a brittle sound in the hushed atmosphere. "Solitude? He's been spending more time at the office than he has with me. Last night, he forgot our anniversary." Serafina's eyes, heavily lined with kohl, widened slightly. "The cards do not lie, dear. They reveal the underlying energies, the unseen forces at play." She shuffled the deck, the rhythmic click a counterpoint to the frantic beat of Amelia's heart. "Let's see, one more draw for clarity." This time, the card that emerged was the Lovers. Amelia's breath hitched. She'd always thought of the Lovers as a card of choice, of harmony and dedication. But the way Serafina looked at it, a flicker of something almost knowing in her eyes, sent a chill down Amelia's spine. "The Lovers, a significant card," Serafina murmured, her voice low. "It speaks of partnership, but also of a choice between two paths. A difficult decision must be made, and it will have profound consequences." Amelia stood abruptly, knocking over a small stack of tarot books. "I don't need any more vague pronouncements," she snapped, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "I came here for answers, not riddles." Serafina remained calm, her gaze steady. "The cards can only guide, Amelia. They cannot make choices for you. The answer, the truth, lies within you." Amelia paid Serafina, a surprisingly hefty sum considering the lack of actual answers, and fled the dimly lit room, the scent of incense clinging to her clothes. Outside, the city was a chaotic symphony of honking cars and chattering voices. But all Amelia could hear was the echoing silence of her own suspicions. Mark, her husband of 10 years, had been distant, preoccupied, and increasingly secretive. She had dismissed it as stress from his new promotion. But the gnawing feeling in her gut wouldn't go away. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and a desperate attempt to maintain normalcy. She cooked Mark's favorite meals, planned a weekend getaway, tried to rekindle the spark that had once burned so brightly between them. But all her efforts felt hollow, forced. Then, one evening, she found it. A receipt tucked away in his wallet, for a consultation with a psychic Serafina. The address was the same one she had visited. The world tilted on its axis. Anger, hot and sharp, surged through her. He had consulted a tarologist? And kept it a secret? The hypocrisy stung more than anything. He, the man who scoffed at astrology and dismissed anything remotely spiritual as New Age nonsense, had sought guidance from a psychic. Filled with a furious resolve, Amelia decided to turn the tables. She made an appointment with Serafina herself, not as a client seeking relationship advice, but as a betrayed wife seeking answers, Serafina seemed genuinely surprised to see her. Amelia. What a... She hesitated, searching for the right word. Unexpected pleasure. Amelia cut to the chase. Mark. My husband. He's been coming to you, hasn't he? Serafina's carefully constructed facade crumbled. She fidgeted with her scarves, her eyes darting around the room. I cannot discuss my client's private matters. Spare me the professional ethics, Amelia said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Are you sleeping with him? The question hung in the air, thick and heavy. Serafina paled, her kohl-rimmed eyes widening in shock. No. Absolutely not, she stammered. I would never. Then what is it? Amelia demanded. What's going on? Serafina sighed, her shoulders slumping. He came to me seeking guidance. He was lost. He felt disconnected from you, from his life. He was searching for something he thought he had lost. And you provided it, didn't you? Amelia challenged. Serafina shook her head vehemently. I only listened. I offered perspective. I told him to look inward, to rediscover himself. He misinterpreted my advice. Amelia stared at her, trying to decipher the truth in her eyes. Was she lying? Manipulating? Or was she just a pawn in Mark's desperate search for something he couldn't find at home? The cards, scattered on the table, seemed to mock her with their silent wisdom. The hermit, the lovers, the tower, the potential for destruction, for rebuilding. Tell him, Amelia said, her voice surprisingly steady, that the cards say his time is up. Tell him the Queen of Swords is coming for him. She turned and walked away, leaving Serafina to grapple with the mess she had inadvertently created. As Amelia stepped out into the night, the city lights seemed brighter, clearer than before. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with pain and uncertainty. But she also knew one thing for sure, she deserved better. And she was damn well going to get it. The fifth story. The sequins glittered under the harsh stage lights, mocking Eliza's tears. Lola LaFlamme, queen of the aerial silk, was a breathtaking goddess in flight, a crimson blur against the indigo backdrop of the circus tent. John had always been enthralled. Eliza, on the other hand, was grounded, a librarian with mud in her fingernails from tending her roses. She preferred the quiet rustle of pages to the roar of the crowd. John, once content with her quiet world, had begun to crave the spectacle. He needed the roar. It started subtly. John, always a punctual husband, started coming home late. Traffic, he'd say, his eyes darting away. Eliza had smelled the faint, cloying scent of popcorn and cheap perfume clinging to his coat, but she dismissed it, attributing it to a late meeting with a client. Then came the excuses, a client dinner. I'll be late, love. A networking event. Can't miss it. Each excuse a carefully crafted lie, each lie a brick in the wall he was building between them. The truth came, as it always does, like a burst of fireworks, spectacular and devastating. It arrived in the form of a dropped photograph. John, arm around Lola, her scarlet lips pressed against his cheek, the circus tent a lurid, vibrant backdrop. Eliza hadn't screamed, hadn't cried. She'd simply stared at the photograph, the world tilting on its axis. She'd spent her life building a quiet sanctuary, a world of books and roses, and now it was crumbling around her. That night, after John confessed, his voice laced with shame and a strange, unsettling excitement, Eliza packed a small bag. I need space, she'd said, her voice flat and toneless. She booked a small room at a bed and breakfast near the coast, the salty air a welcome balm to her burning eyes. She spent days walking the beach, picking up shells, each one a broken piece of a shattered promise. One evening, she found herself drawn to the lights of the traveling circus, the same circus that had stolen her husband's heart. The rhythm of the music, the laughter of the crowd, usually made her uncomfortable, but tonight, she felt a strange compulsion to enter. She bought a ticket and found a seat in the back, the cacophony of sounds swirling around her. The show began, a dazzling display of acrobatics, clowns, and exotic animals. Then, Lola LaFlamme took to the silks. Eliza watched, her heart a cold, hard stone in her chest. Lola moved with impossible grace, a crimson angel defying gravity. In that moment, Eliza saw not a villain, but a performer, a woman driven by a passion she understood, a thirst for the impossible. After the show, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, Eliza went backstage. She found Lola practicing in a dimly lit corner, her face streaked with sweat, her body taut with concentration. Hesitantly, Eliza approached. "Ms. LaFlamme?" Lola paused, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. "Yes?" Her eyes, usually sparkling under the lights, were tired and wary. I'm John's wife," Eliza said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. Lola's expression hardened. "I see." Eliza took a deep breath. "I didn't come to yell. I came to understand." They talked for hours, not about John, but about their lives, their dreams, their fears. Lola spoke of the grueling training, the constant travel, the loneliness beneath the glitter. Eliza spoke of her quiet life, her love of books, her fear of change. Slowly, Eliza began to see Lola not as the enemy, but as another woman, caught in a web of circumstances beyond her control. And Lola, in turn, saw in Eliza not a victim, but a woman of quiet strength, capable of resilience and forgiveness. In the end, Eliza didn't forgive John. But she forgave herself for clinging to a dream that wasn't meant to be. She left the circus with a strange sense of peace. She wouldn't go back to her old life, not entirely. The roses would still bloom, but she would cultivate a new garden, a garden of her own making, filled with unexpected blooms and the quiet strength she had discovered within herself. She might even learn to fly. Perhaps not on aerial silks, but in her own way, on her own terms. As for John and Lola, their story wasn't Eliza's to tell. But she suspected that even under the bright lights of the circus, even amidst the roar of the crowd, happiness was a trick harder to master than any gravity-defying feat, and that, she realized, was a comfort of sorts.